Good evening, dear all. It's so great to see people joining EWB Thursday webinar series. And we welcome everybody to join via Zoom or Facebook. We welcome everyone. And as the tradition, we call EWB Thursday webinars Investment Time for Professionals. And any teachers who are teaching English and who are teaching in different countries, you are welcome to join. And it's always so a big pleasure to welcome familiar faces and new faces to our EWB Thursday webinar series. And today we are so happy to welcome to our webinar series, the great specialist who is prominent in the field of consultancy and also who is doing great job around the globe and who is a big friend of EWB network, dear Lisa Mann. So let's welcome her. And for those of you who doesn't know about Lisa and who just joined recently EWB network, let me just share some introduction. Lisa Mann is an experienced English language teaching consultant, translator, research writing instructor, and EWB honorary member with an international career across Latin America, Central Asia, and Europe. She holds master's degree in TESOL and translation and localization. As a consultant trainer with the Norwich Institute for Language Education, NILE, she has contributed to teacher training, curriculum design, and certification projects, including National English initiatives in Peru and TESOL programs in Uzbekistan and India. Now she's based in Spain and she focuses on research writing, presentation skills, and integration of AI in education, working with universities in Catalonia and beyond. Welcome, dear Lisa, and with great pleasure, I'm giving the floor to Lisa Mann, who will be talking today about using AI for creating assessment rubrics and tools. And we welcome everyone to get engaged and also to put your questions in the comment box or chat box. So we'll make sure to pass them over to our speaker after her presentation. Over to you. Welcome, Lisa. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nasiba, for such a nice welcome. And hello to all of you joining me this afternoon, evening, or whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. Can you just tell me in the chat room where you're joining me from? Fernando, if I remember correctly, you are in Brazil, I want to say. Brazil, yes, okay. Yes, from Brazil, good. Tajikistan. Back to Begim. Hello, dear. Nice to see you here. Okay, good. Everyone else is from Tajikistan? Any other Central Asian countries here with us today? No? It's very nice to see you all. I miss my English Without Borders network friends. It's always good to see you and hear you. And I'm so pleased, of course, that you carry on with your continuing professional development through these webinars and through other events that EWB organizes. I know that just recently you've had your fantastic conference in Dushanbe, and I just saw so many wonderful photos and videos and feedback about that event. I wish I could have been there. Well, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that so many of you, I know so many of you all already. And welcome. I hope more people will stop in as we go along. I've prepared this today's webinar, this topic of using AI in assessment based on basically what Nasiba thought you might be interested in, but also what I know teachers are interested in across the world, is how can they make use of AI to make their jobs a little easier, and all of the work that we do behind the scenes, the many, many hours of work we put into develop lessons and create assessments and all of those things, just so that when we get into the classroom, we can teach for 90 minutes. We need something to help us, and AI is here. I'm sorry for the noise in my house. I hope you can hear me anyway. So hi, Mirvono, nice to see you. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll just get started. So we are going to talk today about designing rubrics and checklists using AI. We'll talk a little bit about good assessment and what that consists of, but we'll also look at some other things. We'll explore how AI can help you create good tools. We'll look at why rubrics matter, what rubrics are and why they matter, why they're important. We'll look at how to use them. And then we'll look at a kind of a rubric, but it's much, much simpler and much, I think, more day-to-day kind of assessment, which is a checklist, something that can be extremely helpful for formative assessment. We'll look at a few tools and we'll practice maybe making a few rubrics ourselves, yeah, as a team with your input. And through that, we'll sort of, as we use those tools, we'll see the kinds of things we need to add to our prompts in order to generate what we want in our rubric. Yeah, so sometimes you start with a relatively simple prompt, and depending on the output you receive, you add more and more detail until you get exactly what you want. All right, so let's launch our first poll. Our first poll is, what do you use rubrics for? And I think I can probably do it from here. Do I have that? I think so. Yes. So go ahead and answer this question. What do you use rubrics for? What kinds of activities do you use them for? And we'll talk more about what they are and what they consist of in a few minutes, but just want to know more or less your experience with using rubrics. Good. All right. All kinds of stuff. Good. Okay. Okay, good. Some of you haven't participated. That's okay. I'll leave it open for just a minute. Ah, there we go. There we have some more. So it looks like we use them for all kinds of things. Let me just show you. We use them. So one person's never used a rubric, and that's fantastic. I'm so glad you're here, and you'll find out what they are and how they can be useful to you as a teacher and how they can be useful to your students in the learning process, which is really important. A couple of you use them for summative assessment or writing tasks. And I think that's probably the most typical use of a rubric. We have to write an essay and we have to, there are some different sort of boxes we need to tick in order to get a good grade on that essay. None of you use them for formative assessment of writing tasks, but that's maybe after this session today, you'll consider that because it's a really nice way to help your students track their progress and improve for speaking tasks. Good. And for individual or group presentations. Oh, okay, so that's interesting. And for individual or group projects. So good, you have some experience with them. We're going to look a little bit at the different types of rubrics there are and what they're good for next. So type into the chat your answer here, all of the answers that are applicable. A well-designed rubric is an effective assessment tool for what? What can you assess with a rubric? A role play, reading a text and discussing it afterwards, a gap fill exercise, listening to a story and retelling it, an essay, collaborative project or presentation, or assessing vocabulary. So rubrics are just one assessment tool of all of the tools that we might have in our toolkits, right? We might give quizzes, we might have tests or exams, we might use any number of different tools. Now, rubric's just one. Can you say anything specific, any kind of specific thing you've used a rubric for? You told me before you use them for projects and presentations. Well, the important thing here is that you can use rubrics for basically for productive tasks, right? You can't, like, productive skills are, of course, speaking and writing, but you can also use them for receptive tasks if a production element is added at the end. You can't use them purely for receptive tasks because you need some evidence. A rubric is assessing evidence of learning. You need some evidence, and that evidence will only be shown through a productive skill like speaking or writing. So reading a text is receptive, but talking about it afterwards is productive. So you can assess both of those things. How well did they understand the text? So that's the receptive part. And how well can they articulate what they read? So that's the productive. Listening to a story is receptive. Retelling it is productive. But we can assess both of those elements because if they're retelling it, we can assess their listening comprehension, right? However, sometimes a student who has listened to a story and understood it completely isn't capable of retelling it because that part of their language learning repertoire, that's speaking piece, isn't quite as high as the listening part. So it's difficult to know whether they've understood, but they aren't capable of expressing it, or whether they didn't understand and that they also can't express it. So those are things that a rubric can sort of help you figure out a little bit with if it's well designed. An essay, of course, we use those for essays all the time, and a collaborative project or a presentation. One useful way, you can't use it for, of course, a gap fill exercise. That's a discrete answer. It's either correct or incorrect. Assessing vocabulary is sort of similar as well. Hi, Feroz, nice to see you. There's a correct or incorrect answer. It's very short. But these sort of more complex, longer tasks, those are what rubrics are good for. An interesting way to use rubrics that I've seen recently I'm so privileged to be able to observe teachers in their classrooms, was a rubric for participation in a group project. So everyone knew that there was going to be a rubric and they were all going to sort of assess one another, but it was a participation rubric and they each had to assess one another and themselves and then give those to the teacher. So it was quite interesting way to sort of embed responsibility into the project, content. All right. So a few things that we need to talk about before we jump right into designing rubrics. We need to talk about some general assessment principles. And there are basically four that you kind of need to have a sort of an understanding of in order to understand whether a rubric is good or not. The four principles are validity. And a validity of an assessment means that the assessment is accurately measuring what you are intending to measure. So when you're looking at a rubric and asking yourself, is this a valid measure of what I wanted to measure? You ask yourself, does what is on the assessment match what you've taught in class, basically? Yeah. Is it a measure of what you taught and what your students have learned? Yeah, so we would never put in a rubric an element or a criteria that hasn't been explicitly covered in your class. So if you put into a speaking rubric something about the pronunciation of the sound R, well, have you addressed that in class? Do the students know that that's something that they should be doing well? Right? So the validity of assessment means it is assessing what you intend to measure. And an assessment that measures something that you haven't taught is invalid. Reliability means that if another person were to use the same tool, take this assessment and use it with their students, with the same student, would the result be the same, right? So that means that not only do you understand what each of the criteria are, but they're easy enough for everyone to understand what they mean. They're clearly written, yeah? The next one is fairness, and this comes in very often in multicultural multicultural contexts where students have a wide diversity of backgrounds, and it's impossible it's possible to introduce biases uh, based on cultural knowledge or language knowledge or socioeconomic status that make it unfair to some students and easier for others, right? And this is the case in the United States. Very often we have these biases built into the test, right? So they say, for example, a test about housing, and the person is supposed to describe their garage. Well, not everybody lives in a house with a garage. That's a socioeconomic bias or just a cultural bias that is built into. And the last one is practicality. And that just means that the assessment can be carried out in terms of the time and the resources and the effort that you have. It's achievable, right? So it's not an exam or an assessment that will take the student longer than the time that you've allotted for it is not practical, and it's unfair as well. So these are just some things that you need to know about. And there are whole master's degrees in assessment, right? So these are just tiny little touching upon some of the four sort of main pillars of good assessment. These are things that you should look into a little bit more if you can, because they are important parts of assessment. But today we're not talking about assessment in general, we're talking specifically about rubrics. And rubrics are important because they support transparency and objectivity. So they make your feedback observable and credible. They also allow your students to grow based on the mistakes they make or the areas of improvement that you observe. They make it easier for you to assign grades, even if you are, sometimes we get so busy as teachers, we have a stack of essays to grade, and maybe we do like 3 or 4, and then you just can't. You put them aside and you come back to them to the next day and you do 3 or 4 and you put them aside. Well, if today you're in a great mood and tomorrow in a bad mood, if you don't have something like a rubric to help you, to guide you in what you're looking for, those grades could be wildly different depending on the day you did them or the moment you were doing them. So it helps you to be consistent no matter what's going on in your life, but to always be more objective and to be fairer in your grading. And lastly, learner self-assessment. So your students should always know what they're being graded on, right? So before they write an essay, they know what you're going to be looking for when you grade it. So they have a copy of the rubric. This is super important that we aren't trying to trick our students. We want them to succeed. Yeah, we want them to know what they have to do to succeed and how to take the steps they need to take in order to succeed. And having a rubric will help them do that. So as a self-assessment, they can write their essay, take their essay and read it with a critical eye with the rubric in their hand and say, have I done this? I think so. Have I done that? Yes, I think I've done that okay. Yeah, and that is an important step in learner autonomy and in growth and in development, but also in success, in academic success. Okay, so let's look at the two big types of rubrics that people talk about and that we work with. We work with what are called holistic rubrics, which just give a score per performance level. So you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then there's a description of what does it mean if you get a 5? What does it mean if you get a 4? What does it mean if you get a 3, 2, and a 1? Yeah, we'll look at examples of these in just a second. And there are analytic rubrics. Analytic rubrics are more complex. They're like a table with lots of different performance indicators. And we'll look at an example in just a moment. Both of these are used for assessing or originate from the need to assess complex performances like writing or speaking. There's more than just one thing going on. Yeah, it's difficult to watch someone give a presentation, for example, and just go, okay, that's an 8. Or that was exceptional, that's a 10. Or that's like a 5. It's unfair to the student, it's unfair to yourself. You don't remember afterwards, they can't grow from that. So these kind of complex things are better assessed with a rubric. So let's look at what holistic rubrics can do. They evaluate a student's whole work, the work as a whole, using a scale like 1 to 5. And they get one overall score based on a sort of overall impression of the quality of the work. Some holistic rubrics are used for things like oral presentations or storytelling or narrative tasks or creative writing, where everything in the everything communicative sort of overlaps one another. It's just we're looking at the ability to communicate. These are quick to apply because there's just one thing that they have to choose. They're best for sort of these large scale final performance tasks. However, there are problems with holistic rubrics. Can you imagine? Let me just show you one, and then we'll talk about what a problem might be, a disadvantage. So this is a holistic rubric for the task. Write a 180 to 200 word opinion essay on the topic, social media has improved communication. Now the holistic rubric has the scale on the side here, and then the description, what are the criteria here that matches the scale. So for this task, a holistic rubric had an excellent, according to this holistic rubric, an excellent essay would tick all of these boxes. It would be complete, it would be clearly developed with good examples, the language would be mostly correct with varied sentences and words, the text would be easy to follow with good paragraphs, and the small effects would not affect comprehension. Now, people use holistic rubrics, teachers use them all the time, and they aren't a bad way. However, can you imagine for this specific task, what would the disadvantage be of using this type of rubric where you just have just a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Can you think of any disadvantages? There's nothing wrong with it, of course. do you think?
Can I share, Lisa?
Uh-huh.
In Tajikistan this year, a 10 score assessment has been adopted, and
Mm.
therefore, like this is only for five, yes, five levels, but nowadays, like teachers are using 10 score. So, and the descriptions seem quite clear, but still they are not, giving more details about how it should be structured, and the level of language is not clear here. So I think therefore this holistic assessment needs more clarification.
Okay, good. Yeah. So from a student's point of view, and you'll notice that the language in this holistic rubric is very simple because we want our students to be able to understand uh, what they have to do. But from a student's point of view, if they get, for example, a satisfactory, they don't know what exactly did they do wrong, right? They know that something wasn't right, but what exactly it is, they don't know that, not without some extra feedback from the teacher, right? So the level of detail there isn't high enough to really give detailed feedback back to the student. It's also quite subjective, right? So it says um, the text flows well. That's the text flows well. It's kind of a little bit more subjective than I would like to have for a task like an essay. The task like an essay would probably use an analytic rubric because, as this rubric shows, there are so many different things in each of these levels. So for me, a holistic rubric is better. Teachers use them for complex tasks like this all the time. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, if that's what you want to do. But and partly because analytic rubrics are difficult to make, but not now with AI, as I'll show you in a moment. Um, but for me, a holistic rubric is better with a slightly less complex task, and we're not looking for so many specific elements of language. Yeah, we're not looking for so many specific um, uh, pieces of evidence of learning. Yeah. It's general that, yes, who said that? Fernando, yes. General, Fernando said it's too general, and a general rubric is subjective, right? So the teacher goes, I like this one. I'll give it a 5, right? Or, oh, this one, it's not very good. I'll give it a 3. But they're not really thinking about, well, what exactly is wrong with it? And that's why we need analytics. But don't get me wrong, people use holistic rubrics. They're fast. They do have their place. Yeah. But for complex tasks like an essay, and especially for summative assessments, where it's high stake assessments where a student's grade depends on them, it's important to, I think, have a higher level of detail. So an analytic rubric breaks down an assignment into different criteria or parts, and each of those are assessed differently. So you're assessing different areas of focus. And this not only helps the teacher really focus on different parts of learning, it helps the student understand what they need to do to succeed, but also what they have, where they have to improve when they get their grade back. I can't stress this enough. For students, the analytic rubric is really powerful because they get it back and they say, I did everything well except my organization. That's what I need to work on now, right? And it allows your teachers to recognize students' differing strengths. And having this information on hand will help you in all kinds of things in the classroom, right? Pairing students. She's really good at organization. Her grammar is really good. Let's put them together and have them work together and see if they can come up with something, teach each other a little something, yeah, learn from one another. So they're not always depending on you to teach them everything. So analytic rubrics look like this. They don't get scared. This is quite It's quite complex, but I'm sure you've seen these before. This analytic rubrics have two axes. Across the top, we have the scale, and this one is 5. You could, if you have a 10 point scale, 10 point scale in your school, you can just put this as 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. And the criteria along the side. And these criteria are the different areas of focus that you've broken it down into. Yeah, so this is the same task. Write an opinion essay on the topic social media has improved communication. And here we have task achievement, organization and cohesion, grammar and accuracy, vocabulary range, register and style. Yeah. So the teacher might say a student might get a 4, for example, in organization and cohesion, or 4.5. You can divide these, up to, if you want to, you can do whatever you want. You're the teacher, you're the boss, so you can say 4.5 or 2.3, however you want to do it, however difficult you want to make the math for yourself. But they might get, so in organization, a very strong point, like a 4 or 5, but then in vocabulary range, a 2, for example. That way, the teacher knows what she needs. If everyone in the whole class gets a 2 in vocabulary range, you know what you need to do. Yeah, when you go back, you need to know what you need to work on a little bit more. But on an individual level, every student knows exactly what he or she needs to work on to improve for next time. Yeah. So these kinds of rubrics are really detailed. They take a little bit longer to implement than a holistic rubric. They are mostly used for writing tasks because they do take longer to use. If you're trying to use a complex rubric like this while a student is doing a speaking task, it's going to get really complicated really fast. It takes you a long time. You have to keep looking down and reading it. But with reading tasks, these are super, super advantageous for you as the teacher and for your students. And they get a very clear idea of what they've done well and what they need to improve. So in the past, these types of rubrics, these kind of very complex analytic rubrics, were difficult to create, but today you can make them in a moment, and I'll show you in just a minute. I just want to take a look at one more assessment tool very quickly before we look at making these types of, and that are checklists. Checklists are just basically the student can do it, the student can't do it. Yeah, it's a yes or no. And these are super powerful for a formative assessment. So if nobody in the class can do what you just taught them, you need to take a step back and probably do some reteaching, or add more practice or something, add more scaffolding before you expect them to produce. And checklists are quick and unobtrusive. You have them on in your notebook. You are walking around the class and listening and sort of doing your checks. They look like this. They have the student's name on one side and then the task. And this one I've got, for example, Unit 1 grammar exercise. Maybe that's a spoken grammar exercise. Unit 1 listening. Unit 1 role play. Unit 2 grammar. So you can have this throughout the course. You're constantly keeping notes. In this case, for Unit 1 grammar, everyone's got it except for Kamal and Lola. And maybe we just give some extra work to them. Maybe we pull them aside. Maybe we team them up differently next time, however we want to do it, but we know that they need more work. Unit 1 listening, almost everybody did not get it, right? So those X's means they can't perform. That means that we need to do that again. Somehow we need to add more scaffolding. We need to reteach, etc. So checklists are really good for you. Basically, they're formative assessment. You're not giving anyone a grade. You're just understanding, can they do this? Do they get it or do they not? Or do we need to work? checklists, you should always have a running checklist very much. I'm going to just move on because we need to take a look at these different tools. So we're going to look at some tools you can use to design rubrics and checklists. And we're going to focus on three: Eduaid, Perplexity, and Magic School. Perplexity is just it's a chatbot, like a generative AI chatbot, just like ChatGPT or Gemini or Bard. Yeah, but I usually use Perplexity, so that's the one I've chosen to use today. And with Perplexity, we're going to ask it to create this rubric. This is our prompt. Generate an analytic rubric for an EFL level A2 speaking activity with the categories. Now, when you ask it to generate an analytic rubric, you need to have at least two things. You need to have three things. What is the activity? What are the categories? And what are the performance levels? Yeah. So what are the criteria? What's the scale? And what's the activity in general? Now, this is quite general, a speaking activity, but we could be much more specific. Let's look what Perplexity gives to us if we do this. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen with you for a second and share it differently. All right, one sec. All right. That's because I have it in the wrong thing. Okay, here we go. I realize that I'm going to run out of time because I'm so bad at time management. And those of you who've been in my workshops, you know that about me. I'm really bad at it. Okay, you can see my perplexity, can't you? So I've just put in that prompt. Let's see what it gives us. Okay. Okay, so it's giving us, because I gave it such a general task of a speaking exercise. It's giving us a very general criteria back, right? But that's the thing about AI, is that you do one prompt and then you continue refining and refining until you get something that's usable back. It's important that you always have to check it and look at it, refine it, continue working with it until you have what you need. Now we have only a three part performance scale with exemplary, proficient, and emerging. And it has all of our criteria along the side. With these tasks, these kinds of rubrics, the scale starts, it contains basically the same language, but it'll say, for example, uses a wide range, uses a range, uses a limited range, does not use a range. Yeah, so it uses the same language throughout the scale. This is pretty good. Now let's, we might just want to refine it if we are want to put in the exactly which kind of speaking activity it is. Yeah, speaking activity in which a student has to ask for directions in the street in Dushanbe. Yeah, but these, you can just copy that here if you click on the table and put it into your Word document, and there you have it. However, I would suggest continuing to refine it. I'm going quickly now because I want to show you everything. Continuing to refine it until it's very specific to the actual task that you are assessing. Yeah. Okay, let's look at something else, because this is just like you would see in ChatGPT, and anything else are going to come up with just basically the same type of rubric. You define the categories, the criteria, you define the scale, you define the activity, and it will generate this in a moment. Okay, let's take a look at Eduaid. I've done many, can you see Eduaid on my screen now? Yeah, okay. I've done many workshops on using Eduaid. I'm just going to say, it says, what are you teaching today? We're looking for an assessment. I'm going to click on that. It's a little, I think this interface is a little hard to use because there's always a box right in front. Maybe you can. What are you teaching today? General English is a foreign language. Role play, focusing on the use of the present perfect and the past, pronunciation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I would give a really specific thing that I want my students to focus on. And we're going to just put that at grades 11 to 12. Where is my rubric one? Oh, no, that's because I'm in the wrong section. There we go. Okay, so let's have it create a analytic rubric. AI is just amazing, isn't it? I mean, you know, when I feel like cheated because when I was learning how to be a teacher and all those years I was teaching, I had to make these myself on my laptop, or not even my laptop. I don't even know if I had a laptop, just on my computer, and I make the table and think of all of the language. And this is it in just 1 minute, 1 second, and we have this great analytic rubric. I put in a relatively high level of detail in my prompt, and that's why we have such a high level of detail here. Yeah? So the prompt is everything. The detail you give is the detail you'll get back. And you can save this just here, just by going export as a Word document, and it'll just save it wherever you want to save it. You could go back to it later and open it up and use it just then. Eduate is fantastic. It has all kinds of different things you can do here just in a moment. Again, important to look at everything it gives you back. You should never just walk into the classroom with something that AI created without having thoroughly read it and made sure that it's what you want, that it's accurate, reflects your style as a teacher. Okay, one last one, and then I'll wrap it up because I know it's getting late. This is called Magic School. And Magic School has lots of stuff. One of them is a rubric generator. And here we have to put in our objective. So I'm going to just put that in. I typed one earlier to save time. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to, simple, and the assignment description. So just because here they ask for a little bit higher level of detail leading up to the generation, it does help a little bit. Okay. And that's it. I'm just going to do that. Standard set to align to the set. Yeah. Let's see what we get. And there we have it. Now, because they ask me all of those questions, this is different from the other two I've shown you because they ask me, what exactly do you want to know? They didn't just invent. And that's the problem with generative AI like ChatGPT. It'll just invent things if you don't tell it. What exactly are you looking for? And then here I have this great rubric that is, I haven't read it over, but once I do, I can refine even further, change it to how I want. And you can just copy that and use it. So that's Magic School. There's Eduate AI, and ChatGPT or Perplexity. All three of those will make rubrics for you, but you have to know what kind of rubric you want, what you're looking for, what your scale is, yeah? And you must, of course, read over everything they give you because you never know what you're going to get back. That's pretty much all I have. Remember that you have to, again, look at everything that you get from AI. How many times have I seen people just like take AI and just use it, and then they get in the classroom and their face is red because they have something that they don't themselves understand, that they didn't intend to put there, whatever. But you have to really refine it and revise it. Choose the type of assessment tool that's best for the task and for your objective. Holistic rubrics for an overall picture, analytic rubrics for really focused skills, and a checklist. Just can they do it or can they not? AIs are just tools. They make mistakes. So always check, adapt, test, and revise. Okay, that's all I have for you. Sorry, I knew I was going to run out of time, Nasiba. I'm so
It's
bad
okay.
about that.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. No worries. All right. So thank you so much. That was really, really great in terms of like, you not only focused on one AI, but rather like, showed different types of AI and how teachers can generate their rubrics through different AI platforms. This is really great. And to be honest, like it just one webinar cannot do miracles, but at the same time, like it gives you some guidance, and also just some way to practice, because like as long as you practice quite long, you'll better find out which AI will work and will be more convenient for you. So yeah, it was trying, and it was like finding your way as teachers. Yes, we will share like the PPT through our website. So not today, but yeah, very soon, because Zuro will do that, and we are usually compiling all the materials from the webinars, and it will be accessible for you to download. Thank you, Eraj, for your interest. All right. So now let's open the floor to questions and answers. And I'm sure, like, all our audience who are watching us on Facebook and who are here in Zoom, you must be having your questions to ask our expert today. So let's open the floor. And if you can, can vocalize your question, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Or if you have any difficulties with your mic or with your video, you can just put your question in the chat box in the Zoom platform, or in the comment box on Facebook. So we'll just share your questions with our speaker. Yeah, thank you so much, dear all. All right. So Lisa, just a question from my side, yes? So to what extent do you think that teachers should rely on AI in creating rubrics, and what are the do's and don'ts? Because like, at the end of the day, we really want to use AI as a teacher's assistant, but, there are some, kind of edges. So
Yeah,
we want to
that's
be
a
on.
good question, and it's an important question to ask because, as I said, it's just a tool, right? And we have to think of it as a tool. It can't replace you. But one of the things you really have to look at when you use AI to create a rubric is that the criteria that it includes reflects what you've actually taught in class, right? Because it AI will produce something whether you give them the details or not. It will just invent, right? So if it's inventing pieces of proficiency that you haven't taught, that you've never addressed in class, that's really problematic. It's problematic for grading purposes, and it's problematic for your students' own self-esteem, right? So you have to check it over and make sure. Okay, you might even just like look at it and think, oh, this looks good. But then when you really start to think about it, you think, you know what? We never really worked on that in class. So why is it in my rubric, right? So that's the kind of thing you really need to look at.
Yeah, thank you.
We've all
Thank
had
you.
that experience with AI where it just invents. It'll just invent. It'll fill
Yeah,
in the gaps with its own invention. And so
yeah.
that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So we have a question from Helena. She's asking, thinking about the ethical use of AI, do you tell students the rubrics were generated by AI?
I would tell them, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We all use AI. I don't hide it. I have not shamed of it. You should have enough confidence in your own expertise as a teacher and as a facilitator of learning that using a tool like AI to create a rubric shouldn't be any more embarrassing than, for example, using a laptop, right, to create a rubric. I don't see any problem with it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Baht Begim, I think Baht Begim, that's more a comment. Some teachers have a kind of habit to assess students unfairly. If a student is very good at speaking skill, it means that it covers the other three skills automatically.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what analytic rubrics are good for. That's absolutely right, Dr. Begim, and that's why analytic rubrics are really good for that. If you really can get the right sort of criteria in there, so that the one I showed you was super complex, but if you're assessing a speaking task and you break it down into things like fluency, because fluency does cover, it covers up other things, right? It covers up little problems with accuracy. It covers up problems with word choice sometimes. So you can break it down into sort of fluency, accuracy, word choice, expression, all of these different parts, then it's easier to sort of focus on one thing at a time and to move away from the sort of dazzle of the fluent student. Yeah, we've all seen that effective game. That's such a common problem and such a good comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Okay, Marhabo is asking, what role should teachers still play in reviewing and finalizing rubrics created by AI?
Well, as I said, you have to check it over and make sure that it aligns with what you've covered in class and it aligns with the learning outcomes that you have set for your students. So there's still a big role. And your role also is just sort of making those prompts takes time. It's not like you just go, okay, AI, make me a rubric. You have to think about, what do I want to assess? What's my scale? What have I covered in class? And you have to give AI all of that information. So it's basically just sort of feeling it out a little bit, making it pretty, putting it in the boxes. It's not replacing it when you're using it as a tool. So you still have a big role, your big role. It's still coming from your mind, basically. Oops, I can't hear. I can't hear you, Nasiba, you're muted.
We hear you okay, Miss Ma'am.
But Nasiba, I couldn't hear.
Yeah, I can't hear Nasiba, but we can hear you really well.
Good.
By the way, it's really nice to see you, Miss Ma'am. I'm happy.
Thank you. I remember you well, Fernando. It's nice to see you too.
Yeah, your webinar was amazing. I have a question. I don't see any problems in using AI to generate rubrics. I think that's a really useful tool. As you said, it's really important for the teachers to check what it elaborates, because sometimes it adds some elements which are not part of what we're doing. But many teachers are using AI to actually correct the, for example, assignments that students do, like the written assignments.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, until what point that is appropriate or not. I would like your opinion on that.
Well, that's a hard one to comment on, really. At this moment, because my opinion changes from day to day. Right now, I think that the teacher needs to read everything that her students produce. Yeah, that's our job, right? It isn't our job to just feed it through a machine. So and we can detect so many other things, and understand our students so much better and make so many better connections with them if we read what they produce. That I think right now, today, I think I would not ask AI to completely grade an essay. I think that that it would be unethical to some extent.
Yes.
Taking my
Yes.
job is to read the essays. I can
Yes,
use this
ma'am.
tool to help me grade them, like a rubric that AI created, but I'm not going to give a student a grade, a C based on because AI told me to give them a C. I think that's
Exactly.
wrong.
I believe that one thing that's really useful that what AI can do in a situation like this is like the teacher should correct the essays, participate in this, and then use AI or use the essay and ask AI to generate some kind of general feedback and some supporting exercise that could help the students work on the mistakes they had or suggest some ways that they can work what they can do to overcome the problems that they're having.
The teacher could do that, or the students themselves could do that as a homework
Yeah.
assignment. Like, here's your paper back, here's the rubric that you got. Now ask AI how you can improve this paper, and then
It's
try
even better
again,
for
right? Or
students
whatever.
that you're promoting autonomy, right? And that's
Exactly. Yeah.
one of the magic
Yeah.
that AI has, right?
Mm.
It's an amazing tool to promote autonomy.
Yeah, that's right. And this isn't about using AI with students, but there are lots of ways that we can ask our students to use AI to really complement what you do in class and really promote autonomy and curiosity with them. So yeah, good.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Any other questions?
I think no, because like yeah, everything seems to be clear. But I think like, at least teachers who attended today's webinar, they got an idea why to create rubrics, yeah, and what are the tools that can help them to create rubrics, yeah, for their class. But of course, like, as we discussed, as Lisa emphasized, and also Fernanda supported, yeah, teacher's job is essential in everything. And
Absolutely.
AI, yeah, is a teacher assistant. So please, yeah, try and share how it works with you while creating your rubrics. Dear audience, will be happy to hear from you as well. All right. So,
Can I just share one last comment? And that is that one of the things that AI can do for us so much is make our outside of class work a little easier, so that when we go into the classroom, we have all of our energy, all of our compassion, all of our passion to give to our kids, right, to our students. And we don't have to spend 5 million hours outside of class grading essays and writing rubrics and all of those different things. So it's powerful in that way, right? We can spend more energy with in the place where it really counts.
Yeah, agree. And I agree that, yeah, teachers have more time to make connection with the students and building this rapport, which makes their learning much more, yeah, meaningful and much more effective. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so if there are no last minute questions, let us then wrap up. So many, yeah, words of gratitude to you, dear Lisa. Everybody enjoyed the webinar.
It's so nice to see you all again. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And for those who couldn't make, to join today's webinar, you still can watch it in our on our Facebook page. Yes, because it will be still there. So yeah, please go there. And also, this webinar will be available on YouTube. In addition to that, over 300 webinars of EWB are available on YouTube. So yeah, if you miss anything, yeah, so you still can go to YouTube channel and search for the specific webinar. And Lisa, in the past, she delivered numerous webinars on useful topics for teachers, as well as Fernando. Yes, today. And we welcome both of you, yeah, to do more webinars in the coming year, and we'll be happy to see you again. Thank you so much, dear all. Thank you so much once again, dear Lisa, and all the participants of today's webinar. We were very happy to see you. And please stay tuned, stay connected with us, and we'll be happy to see you over and over on EWB online activities. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Nassim. It was amazing. Thank you
Thank you
once
so
more.
much. Thank you so
You,
much.
dear Lisa. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Oh,
It's always
thank
so
you.
great to
Thank
see
you.
so many friends around the globe and also to feel your love. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your
Okay,
great
bye everyone.
contribution. Bye-bye.